It's really easy, I think, to think about like immediate ROI. I think it's much, much harder to think about the long term. So I know with Video Husky, technically speaking, I can create a great story of maybe by, let's say we hit 83K MRR by end of the quarter. I can create the great story and the great headline of, oh, we went from 0 to 1 mil ARR in 18 months profitably. And it becomes so catchy. It's so nice. And yet it's so bullshit because that doesn't account for so much of the other stuff that came beforehand. This is what, my like ninth year? What am I? I'm 20. This is my 8th year. My 8th year of working, right? And it doesn't account for all the years of running operations at another company. It doesn't account for the, I don't know, like tens of thousands of dollars invested into random things like Facebook ads training, chatbot training, e-com training, on all of these things that at the time I kept on thinking, shit, that didn't pay off, shit, that didn't pay off, shit, that didn't pay off. But it adds up. And so the way that I would characterize, and like without all these things, if I hadn't spent all that like time running in a operations company, I wouldn't know how to run the operations side of Video Husky. If I hadn't spent all that time doing Facebook ads for I'd Hike That, I wouldn't be able to run Facebook ads for Video Husky. If I hadn't spent all that time doing chatbots for clients, I wouldn't have been able to set that up for Video Husky. And so all of this crap lines up to something else. And so even if the investment at the time didn't seem like it paid off, it ended up paying off for me years later. And so the way that I would try to see it is, would you be happy if your investment only paid off, let's say 1,000 days from now? There was one particular podcast that I loved at TMBA, and it was a concept of 1,000 days. It's a concept that for 1,000 days, you'll be shittier at your new job than what you were. And that literally added up for me. It was like when I first started I did my first foray into like online marketing and all that crap in 2016. It took 3 years up until now, 2019, before I think I started earning more and getting more, and I think have things going better than like when I first started. So the question not so much is, do you think the coaching will pay off? Because really, anytime you work with somebody who is qualified, who has had success, somebody like Alex, the knowledge is there. It's gonna be helpful, but it's not so much about whether or not you're making the investment. It's about how comfortable are you with the return being longer. Because the bottleneck is not the knowledge that you can get from Alex. The bottleneck is really your own pace of change. And I think no matter who you are, it's gonna take time for that change to settle into yourself. 1% every day sounds really, really small, but I think compounded, that's like 3,000% over like, I don't know, was it 300% over a year. And so it takes time. It takes a lot of time, but just because the payback period is slow doesn't mean it isn't worth the investment, because that shit compounds. Change perspective. That's always the word that I feel like I come back to. I remember like rereading some of my old Medium articles. Yeah, perspective. Every time it's perspective. And so whether it's perspective in terms of having like pulling me out of weeds, and typically I don't need that to happen very often because I very much enjoyed not being in the weeds in the first place, but pulling me back even further to really understand, like the bigger picture that I don't see. And I think perspective perhaps is one of the things that we as humans are weakest at, because, well, we can't see what hasn't yet happened. It's just, we're very good at looking backwards. Like forwards though, it's hard to imagine. It's hard to imagine like beyond next quarter. But you can see the people who are most successful in life are the people who can provide perspective and can have perspective. So the first is gaining perspective. And so really zooming out to like make sure I know that I am on the right path, that again, things take time, but also changing perspective to be able to kind of like take what I have and take what I say and be able to shine a new light on it and realize, oh, I didn't consider it in that aspect. And in the moment, it seems like such a small thing. It seems like just a small light bulb that kind of goes off in your head and you might not get excited about it, but those shifts in perspective, it's like a change in the course of a boat. Like it just seems like, 1 degree off change, like you might go from here to all of a sudden here, and now you're just going straight here. But what you might not have realized is there's a fucking huge iceberg over here that you just missed. And so you don't get to see that. That's what I realized. You don't get to see the iceberg that you just missed. You don't feel it, but it doesn't mean it wasn't there. And I think that's where coaching is really, really helpful, because you don't have the experience as the captain of your own boat to kind of see everything around you. But having somebody who has charted those waters before guide you goes a long fucking way. And so that's something that I always appreciate about working with Alex.